tonight. I went to the book of Mark. I read the text. I was satisfied that that's where I was going to be, and I am. I read it, I studied a little bit, and I felt a sense, if I may put it that way, I sensed that I needed to put it aside, leave it alone. So I put down what I had. So far, I had a title, I had a text, I had 3 points, one word point, and that's all I wrote down. This afternoon, I had a moment where I felt like the Lord would allow me to look at it again. I picked it up and I wrote a few more things down. As I was sitting there, something else came to my mind in regard to it, and I wrote it down too. It may be short, it may be long, I don't know. But it covers less than a half a page, well, maybe about a half a page. All right? And we will see where we are when we get through. We may do things differently, we may not, I don't know. You have your Bibles in tonight, turn to the book of Mark, chapter 9, Mark 9, verse 14. When you get there, if you'll join me in standing. The Bible says here in Mark 9 and verse 14, and when he came to his disciples, he saw a great multitude about him, the scribes questioning with them. And straightway all the people, then when they beheld him, were greatly amazed, and running to him, saluted him. And he asked the scribes, what question ye with them? And one of the multitude answered and said, Master, I have brought unto thee my son, which hath a dumb spirit. And wheresoever he taketh him, he teareth him, and he foameth, and gnasheth with his teeth, and pieth away. And I spake to thy disciples that they should cast him out, and they could not. He answereth him, and saith, O faithless generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him unto me. They brought him unto him, and when he saw him, straightway the Spirit carried him, and he fell on the ground and wallowed foaming. And he asked his father, how long is it ago since this came unto him? And he said, of a child. And oftentimes it hath cast him to the fire and to the waters, and to destroy him. But if thou canst do anything, have compassion on us and help us. And Jesus said unto him, if thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth. And straightway the father of the child cried out and said with tears, O Lord, I believe, help thou mine unbelief. And Jesus saw that the people came running together. He rebuked the foul spirit, saying unto him, Thou dumb and deaf spirit, I charge thee, come out of him, and enter no more into him. And the spirit cried and rent him sore, and came out of him, and he was as one dead, insomuch that many said, He is dead. Jesus took him by the hand and lifted him up, and he arose. And when he was come into the house, his disciples asked him privately, Why could not we cast him out? And he said to them, This kind come forth by nothing but prayer and fasting. Father, we thank you today for me and blessings, Lord. Have your way. Drape my heart, my mind, my lips. Open the hearts of those that are here that they might receive your glory and honor, we pray in Jesus' precious and holy name. Amen. I want to remind you where we are because it's important, I think. Just coming off the Mount of Transfiguration, Peter, James, and John are with Christ, okay? So it is not Peter, James, or John who's not the ones who are trying to cast out this demon. It is the other disciples, okay? And I am careful with the wording here. I keep on seeing things. Even as I was reading now, something caught my attention as I was reading through it. And I'm careful with the wording of things because what he says here, we can misunderstand, I think. And let me show you a few things. By the way, as you come into this situation, as you come up a mountain, and the other disciples, you have the scribes questioning them. And I noted Christ's reaction. You see that? Why are you questioning them? What's going on here? Scribes, while they have some knowledge, they have a lot of knowledge. Without salvation, understand what I'm saying, because I'm satisfied with some of them who operate in faith, and there are those who operate in religion, okay? And without faith, without knowledge of God in their lives, their knowledge is tainted. And so they come to this life, they're questioning them. And I'm satisfied that to some degree they are confusing the situation, right? And so when Christ comes off the mountain and he asks what's going on, the scribes don't answer him. One of the multitude comes out. It just happens to be the father of the child. I brought my son. He has a deaf and dumb spirit, and this is what it's doing to him. And your disciples couldn't cast him out. Notice what he says to the man. Verse 19. He answereth him. I don't think I've caught that really before. I'm thinking the disciples. But he's not speaking here to the disciples or even of the disciples. He's speaking to the man that has brought his child to him. And he says to him, O faithless generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him unto me. Why couldn't the disciples cast out the demon? Was it because they lacked faith? Or because the Father lacked faith? Only Christ can do this. You're wasting your time. I think sometimes, remember when Christ went to Nazareth, they had no confidence in him. And the lack of faith brought forth a lack of results. Sometimes the lack of the ability of the church to have an impact in society is not the lack of the faith in the church, the lack of the faith in society. Something that caught my attention. And looking at this, he's speaking to the Father. You're part of a faithless generation. And then when, in verse 23, when Christ says, just unto him, if thou canst believe, all things are possible unto him that believeth. I know his reaction, and this is much the reaction I had when I read that. I was reading this, when I was preparing and reading through this, before I read what he said, I said what he said. Okay? And straightway from the father of the child cried out and said, with tears, Lord, I believe, help my unbelief. You ever said that? And knowing this text, have you ever said that? Thought about that? Lord, I believe. Help my unbelief. Help me, Lord. The Father's crying out here for his son, I believe, help my unbelief. I think to some degree he acknowledges the fact that the reason why the disciples couldn't cast it out was my own fault. Okay? Part. Understand there are three needed things here. And faith is just one thing. So Christ has him bring the child. He cast the demon out. The crowd was coming, and they move aside and get away. Okay? And the disciples come to him afterwards and say, why couldn't we cast him out? Understand, the disciples have been commissioned. Back in chapter 6, verses 7 and 8, they were commissioned to cast out demons. They have done that. It's not likely that they didn't try, but they did that they could. In Jesus' name, in the power of God. And in fact, when they came to him and told him later in chapter 6, I think it's verse 30, that what they had done, it's not mentioned it there, but that they mentioned that they had done things, and I'm satisfied that some of the things they had done was cast out demons. So when they ask the question, why couldn't we cast them out? Christ doesn't say because they didn't believe. He doesn't say that well, you could have cast him out if it weren't for the Father. He had no confidence in you. He only wanted me to do it. That's not what he says to him. He says this kind only comes out by prayer and fasting. It is a mark in Christ's ministry, and we have seen it a few times. There are more times than what we have seen in the book of Mark that he has done so. But Christ is consistently going away into a desert place, into a mountaintop, in some place to pray, to rejuvenate, to get back in communion with the Father, to deal with the pull of the crowd. You don't see it so much in the disciples. By the way, let me remind you, ever since chapter 6, we have been trying to find a place for the disciples to rest, and we really haven't found one. And I don't know how much time has passed since then. We kind of have lost some of the track. The traveling and the events that have taken place, there seems to be quite a bit of expensive time. Understand at the end of next chapter, he's dealing with blind Bartimaeus, and then in chapter 11 begins that 8-day journey from the crucifixion to the resurrection, or from the triumphal entry to the resurrection. So understand that we are in close to the end of his life. That's the reason why you keep on seeing, and you'll see it again on the very next thing, where Christ mentions again his death, burial, resurrection, and they don't understand still. One of the last things that we read last week was the fact that as they're coming off the Mount Transfiguration, he mentioned the resurrection, and they had no clue what he meant by the resurrection. So understand we are in a well advanced in time. He is preparing them for the end. I don't know, I'm satisfied they have had some time to get away and to rest. But we haven't seen it yet. And he says here that this kind only comes out by prayer and fasting. There are some things that we as a church will only accomplish through prayer and fasting. It's true. And I was sitting here this evening, and it hit me as I was musing over those three words. Because, first of all, we have to have faith in God. Faith in and of itself is not enough. It has to be placed in the right place. I've got to have faith in God. I've got to trust Him. I can have faith in Brad Pitt. Ain't gonna do me a bit of good. I've got to have faith in God. And I'm satisfied for all that are here tonight who profess to know Jesus Christ, your personal Savior, that is where your faith is. But sometimes we, like the disciples, don't always spend enough time in prayer. And I think it's important sometimes to note who the prayer should be to. Because I'm not praying to Confucius or Buddha. Okay? I'm not praying to my dead grandmother. I'm praying to God. I think it's important to note that. That's what I was thinking about as I was sitting here tonight, that faith has to be in God. Prayer has to be to God. And then it's also important to note the purpose of the fasting. Fasting in and of itself. Listen, growing up, back in the 70s, I remember us having a revival. The pastor asked everyone to, in preparation of the revival this week, we're having a revival starting next Monday night. Actually, I think it was that next day, that was Monday, next day. Asked that everybody would fast lunch in regard for the revival. The area we were in, that's one of the things that they would ask to do. And I remember coming in, we were living in McGardle at the time, and I remember coming to the house, my oldest sister was there, Deborah, and she was, I went into the house, it had to be lunchtime, I was getting a little hungry, you know how little boys are. And she told me that, hey, we're fasting this meal. I said, oh, that's right. And I went back outside and went back to play. That's not fasting. That's skipping the meal. I want you to understand that. That's not fasting. That is skip. I understand the term fasting means to skip a meal. I understand that what you do in the midst of the night is fast, because you're not eating the whole time you're asleep. Most people are not. There are people who sleepwalk who apparently eat in the night while they're sleeping. But for the most of us are not doing that. And that's the reason why they call it breakfast, because we're breaking the fast. But fasting is more than just not eating. I want you to understand that. It's medical fasting as such. So some of us have to, most of us probably at this point, in this room, except for maybe some of the little ones, well, maybe even some of them if they have had to have surgery. They have had to fast a little bit in preparation for surgery or for a blood test or for something. Most everybody in this room has a medical fast. And there are other types of medical fasting that people do to help, not just in preparation, but to get the body to a certain place. But we're not talking about medical fasting. We're talking about spiritual fasting. And there's a purpose. You have faith in God. You pray to God. And you fast for God. Okay? And that kind of leaves that kind of open-ended. But let me say it this way. Sometimes the reason why we would fast is because we are spending time with God, in communion with Him. All right? And we're in the Word, we're in prayer, and we skip a meal just because. Okay? That's one way, one idea behind fasting. Sometimes some people, because they have a burden on their heart and are in prayer, nothing will satisfy till that prayer is answered. I'll be honest with you, I don't see that in the church very often anymore. But nothing will satisfy till that prayer is answered. And a person goes on their knees and prays and prays and prays and prays until they have an answer from heaven. Why couldn't the disciples cast out this demon? Well, I think it's deeper than the faith portion, even though it's important, because there was a faithless generation that was there that didn't have any confidence in the disciples of Christ. But there's a matter of prayer and fasting. They themselves were not prepared. They themselves were not earnest in it. They themselves weren't willing to invest the time and the energy into it. I was thinking about that, and I thought about our services. This month, 2 weeks, we have a Fifth Sunday singing. And while it'd be nice to have a house full, we can get disenchanted, if I may put it that, that's the wrong word. We can get mesmerized, if I may put it that way, by a crowd and miss the spirituality of things. Okay? While that would be great to see a 60 up there, instead of somewhere around the 30s, 25 to 30s. It would be great to see us 60 there. I would rather see, and by the way, let me say this. I have not had a person come to this building and preach or sing who did not say, Brother John, I feel the Spirit so strong here. The Spirit of God is here. I'm satisfied with that. He comes with me and you, all right? And His presence is strong. We're not asking Him to come, to show up. We need Him to move. We need conviction to fall in our midst. The thing is, are we committed to that? Are we willing? Do we have faith that He will? Are we committed to the prayer, time that we require, that may bring about fasting? Are we willing to do the things that are necessary to see Him move? This ain't singing coming up. We need to be prayerful. We got a big Shabbat school coming up. We need to be prayerful. We may have a smaller number than some other group has, but we need to impact that group that we have. We have Civil Be at Camp that's coming next week, not this week, next week, and there'll be kids all over the place. And honestly, I would beg for your prayers for that camp. We have revival coming up. Homecoming and revival in August. And listen, if there's any ever a time that we want to see the power of God fall and to move through a building, it is during revival. But not to say we don't want any other time. But it's during revival. And homecoming especially. It'd be great. We have a business meeting coming up. Annual business meeting in July. And I think sometimes we are too lackadaisical in regard to our business meetings. I think we don't take them seriously enough. I'm not saying we don't need to have fun. What I'm saying is that it's a serious thing. We're doing the business of God. And we need to be much in prayer for it. We need to be able to come with conviction. Lord laid on my heart that this should happen. But listen, the Lord has led me to be a delegate this time. Wouldn't that be wonderful? I'll be a delegate. The Lord told me to do so. We don't have delegates in July, okay? But listen, there are positions that are being considered. There are teachers in different classrooms that will be nominated and elected. And we will come in here, and if we're not careful, all we'll say is, if everybody's satisfied where they're all, we'll just leave it as it is. What does God want? Not what do I want. Not necessarily what's easy for me. What does God want? You'll vote on me. What does God want? Are we willing to invest the time to see Him move in us? That's a question. I think in the book of Luke, that what he says there is applicable to this conversation. And that's probably what this is more than a message. The woman had come to an unjust judge and knocked on his door day and night, asking him to do something. And he finally does it just because of her insistence. And he says, how much more? As your Father in heaven who wants to help you, well, I'm here. Christ said, nevertheless, when the Son of Man cometh, will I find faith in the earth. Let's do a song, everyone stand.